So these statistics are not derived by anybody. They're pulled straight from the sources to give you an idea of where Hawaii stands in a lot of key statistics and where we are today. In my own professional life, I'm an analyst, and I work with assessments at the Commander of Pacific Fleet. And you can't make a plan to go somewhere unless you honestly and accurately assess where you are today. And you have to tell the people either how good it is or how bad it is in order for you to correctly develop a plan to get you to a goal of where you want to be. So the first thing tonight we're going to talk about are just some of the statistics that we pulled that talks about Hawaii's economy. Next slide. Okay, these are certain economic development indices. This comes straight from the DBET data book. Some of these data indices here, they're kind of hard to see from back there, but they give you a grade like in school. A is good, F is bad. Our business development in Hawaii, you can see there's lots of D's and F's. Business vitality, F, D. Competitiveness in existing business, D. Entrepreneurial energy, F, D, D. Development capacity, F's. Financial resources, F's. This is a terrible business climate. As a matter of fact, just recently, our own newspaper in Honolulu stated that Hawaii ranks 48th in the nation in business climate. Next slide. Right now, Hawaii ranks very high as one of the most highly taxed states in the nation. And that's in combination from our income tax and also from our GET, our general excise tax, which, oh, by the way, is not a sales tax. It is not a final point of sale transaction that you make at the store. The general excise tax touches every single transaction of goods and services in the state. And we are only one of the very few states that lays a tax on food, medicine, and rent. This tax is a very regressive tax. Whenever they raise it, it hurts the lower and middle income families the worst. So, from this chart here, again, straight from our database, Hawaii, you can see in this column here, ranks anywhere from 5 to 14 to 12 to 7 to 5 over these years from 1990 to 2008. So if you are number 1, 2, 3, that's telling you that you are one of the most heavily taxed burdened states in the nation. Next slide, please. This is part of our state expenditures between 2003 and 2007. And I do apologize, the DBET database gets updated yearly, sometimes they fall behind. So 2007 is the latest year that I could find. But right now, education budget makes up nearly 40% of our state expenditures. Hawaii's education budget has grown 32% over that time period from 2003 to 2007. A massive increase. But when we talk about education, let's see how we're doing with that money. Next slide, please. Again, from the Hawaii DBET database, reading and math, over 70% of 8th grade and 10th grade students fall below standards in math. 35 to 40% of that same group fall below standards in reading. These are children that are 2 and 4 years away from supposedly either going to college, learning a trade, going into the workforce, starting businesses, and vitalizing our economy. And they're having these problems. Next slide. Okay, more education bad news. I did not believe this when I saw it. This came from a study, Public Education in Hawaii, Past, Present, and Future, by a gentleman by the name of Randall Roth. The Department of Education in Hawaii is the single biggest employer and money budget in the state, both government and private. They employ more people than all of those companies in Hawaii combined. Combined. A huge department, very huge. Next slide. So what does that money get you? Again, some of the more shocking statistics from that study from Randall Roth. Okay, we do fall below national averages in graduation rates, but this is the one down here that shocked me the most. In 2008, the University of Hawaii administered placement exams, aptitude tests, to more than 3,000 students that graduated from one of Hawaii's high schools to enroll them in one of 7 University of Hawaii community colleges. 79% of those high school graduates required remediation in math in order to take college courses. 65% needed remediation in writing, and 52% needed remediation in reading. These children are being done a huge disservice. They are being shut out from our world because our education system, with an extremely huge budget, a lot of employees, are failing them. Next slide. So what does that government get you? This comes directly from the United States Census Bureau. This graph here indicates how many government workers per 10,000 people in each state. The national average is 216. If you take all 50 states and take the national average, you have about 216 state, county, or city government employees per 10,000 people. Hawaii has 581. We are all the way an outlier on the maximum left side of the scale. Now, this is just awareness, letting you know where our government stands. Okay? Hawaii is ranked first, even though we're 42nd in the nation in terms of population. We have one of the smallest populations in the country. Hawaii is almost 40% higher than the second-ranked state of Alaska and 2 times higher than the average. So I'll just pose a question to the folks in the audience. Is this necessary? Do we need this much? Next slide. Okay, this was taken from the Grassroots Institute of Hawaii. Now, those government workers, between the years 2000 and 2009, they've made out. They're getting a 69% increase over that time span, or a 6% compounding growth rate, to pay for salaries, health benefits, and retirement. And oh, by the way, in Hawaii, during those times of 2000 to 2000, let's say it was about 2007, we were doing pretty well. The economy was chugging along. We thought we were doing great. We didn't know we were going to get hit with this recession. Hawaii was doing fairly well. We were pulling in increased tax revenues every year between 2000 and 2007. But during that time, did those increased tax revenues go to improving our roads or improving our sewers or improving our schools? No. 78 cents on every dollar of those increased revenues over that time period went to union collective bargaining to pay for increased labor rates in our government, when they could have been improving our state so we would have that easier commute on H1 sooner, or we would have had things in our community sooner. But they've decided to funnel it away to other things. Next slide. I think this is one of my last slides here. So, the number of state employees, okay, between 1990 and 2008 has steadily increased. Steadily increased. But what I don't have up here is one of the most shocking statistics. And that is from December 2008 to present, during this recession, when people are losing their jobs, okay, 50,000 private sector jobs have been lost in Hawaii from December 2008 till present. But during that same time period, we've grown our government by 2,300 jobs. Now, I didn't make this up. And I would challenge anybody to take me to task to say that that stuff is wrong, because I can show you the sources. So, Hawaii's state population from 1990 to 2008 increased 16%. Hawaii's state government jobs, or the government, increased 31%. What that comes down to, over that time period, our population increased by about 180,000 people. The government grew by 17,642 jobs. Do we really need a new government position for every 10 people that move to Hawaii? Just ask yourself that question. That's all I'm going to say. And I believe that's my last slide. So, that's where we find ourselves. But before I leave you tonight, I've looked up other newspaper articles from the Star Advertiser and before the merger to the Honolulu Advertiser and the Star Bulletin. And we took newspaper captions of where the newspaper was getting their information from, saying where we were ranked, okay? We're ranked 47th in the nation in education. We're ranked 48th in business climate. We're 49th in our highway system. Out of a state of 1.2 million people, we have over 320,000 people on government assistance. We have the #1 tax state in the nation. We have the #1 credit card debt, the #2 mortgage debt. We have the second highest cost of living in the nation. The only place in America where you can live where it's more expensive is Manhattan Island in the middle of New York City.
Information is not to criticize anyone, but I think it's pretty clear that something is not efficient. If we're spending more for services, why aren't we getting the services that we need?